everybody to another edition of Jersey Joe in the Kitchen. Today we are going to make braciole, or braciole, depending on where you're from. But if you don't get the little bit with the hand, then you're saying it all wrong. Italians speak like this. We're going to make the braciole. So braciole is made a couple of different ways, but generally it's a flank or skirt steak that has some type of cheese, prosciutto ham, maybe some spinach, and you roll it all up, you pan sear it, and then you put it in the Sunday red gravy. You put some mozzarella on the top, you put it in the oven, and you bake it. So that's what we're going to put together today. I got some fresh skirt steak here. I've already pounded it out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sear the sides a little bit, bottom and top, bring it back out here, cut it into more manageable portions, and then we're going to go ahead and make the mixture up for inside, which is one of my little not so secret anymore recipes on what I put inside mine. But I use a mixture of ricotta cheese, a little bit of provolone cheese, some sausage, some Italian sausage, and the spinach. You mix it all up, and that makes you a real nice filling. Spread it on there real nice, roll it up, and there you go. So when we get back at you, we'll have these already pan seared, and we're ready to start making the stuffing. While that flank steak is searing off over there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to prep the ingredients for the stuffing. I'll start off with some green onion, chopped garlic. Green onion is awesome. It cooks down nice. It's got a real nice soft flavor, and it looks nice when you mix it in with a white cheese. So we'll just get this green onion prepped here and be ready to go for that next step. When you're searing your steak off, you want to make sure you got a good stove. You want to have a good exhaust fan because you want to be hot, hot, hot in the pan, and you want to have a good exhaust fan or you're going to smoke the house up. I like to put a little bit of salt and pepper. Gives that just a little bit of flavor. Nothing else though. We want to keep the flavor of the meat. We just want to give it a little sear. We're not trying to cook the steak. We bake the steak in the gravy. We're just searing it off so it's nice and clean for us to work with. And you gotta let this steak rest before you do the next step because you want it cool. You want it to be cooled down before you do any of that. So again, we're gonna go ahead and get it down here. Nice hot pan. And just let that set in there. Let that sear up a little bit for us. What do you think of my new chef cook? I think I've arrived. Is we're going to let our steak rest, okay? And remember, you want to take, food safety precautions. We had raw meat on here. We seared it off. We put it over here. We cleaned this. before we brought it back out. For safety purposes, remember to do that. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and get started on the filling. And I start off with some garlic. Green onion. And go ahead and put about a pound of ground sausage in there, fresh ground sausage. Fancy masher here, and I'm just going to mash this sausage down and let this sausage cook down. I got high heat here, so I want to make sure that I don't burn. And I just keep mashing until I slowly start to cook this down. I'm using a big pot because I got the Sunday gravy in a little pot, which I would have preferred to use. But I guess we can't have everything. So we'll just let this fry down. And then we'll get the spinach in there once we get that to cook down a bit. Now once you get your sausage and your onion down to about a point like this here, where it's not quite done, but it's just about there, what we're going to do now is we're going to put some spinach in here. And spinach, we're just going to go crazy with it because it's all going to come down. So it's all going to shrink down. So you can put this whole container in here if you wanted to, if you like spinach. Me, I'm probably going to use about half the container here because there's a lot of spinach. But spinach is good. You know, see Popeye? All right, so we just let that sit on there. I think I'm good. I think we need 2 more. All right, good. A little bit of oil on top. Some salt. Some pepper. Bring it on down to a low, 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 low. You know that song, Flo Rida? Low, low, low. Hey, we're gonna get low. Keep the gravy warm. A little low flame on the gravy. Make sure the gravy's gonna be ready to go. Looking real nice. Real nice. Look at that. So this could be considered a Sunday gravy. It's as thick as I like it. You know it's thick when you can go from the center and slide out and see the bottom and still see that kind of slow hole there. So you know your thickness is right. It is a Sunday gravy, yes. Sunday gravy is universal for a lot of dishes. So it takes a few hours to make. You want to start early in the morning. But it's a secret, and I'm not going to give you that secret till that cookbook comes out. So you're just going to have to guess what's in here. But I'll tell you what's in here. Just one ingredient: tomatoes. Fancy dancy strainer here that I can fit right in top of the pot. So I went and I strained it off, and I'm just going to let it sit on top of this pot because at this point now I don't want any liquid. I want this as dry as possible, bone dry. I mean, I'm talking as dry as the jokes that Grandpa tells that no one laughs at. That's what I'm talking dry here. Just want to incorporate it all. Make sure it looks festive and pretty. That's what we're looking for. Remember, I've always said it to you folks. People eat with their eyes. If it looks nice, it automatically in your brain says, oh, this is great. So you just keep that in mind. All right, so when we think we got this ready now, we'll check, make sure our juice strip is down to a minimum. Let's go ahead and get it into the bowl. And now we're going to get ready to add some of these ingredients here. So, we got ourselves a little bit of thyme. Time after time. Good. Italian seasoning. Looks good. A little bit of pepper. And we're good with that. Give it a little mix. All right. Parmesan. 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 I like to get it a little bit spread across the top, make almost like a little mound in the middle going back and forth. Yes, I do not use measuring cups. I don't like them. So it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You want to know the details? We're going to put together a cookbook down the road here. And then when we do that, you'll have all of the measurements that you could ever possibly want. Let's go ahead and get the ricotta cheese in here. I don't want to put it all in right away. I want to slowly incorporate it. So we'll let that sit there. And then we're going to get some regular, this is an Italian blend. It's got some mozzarella, provolone. Just put that in there. And you notice I shook this hand while I was doing here. Guess my brain's not working like that. All right, slowly incorporate it. We don't want to grind up the sausage too much, but we do want to get everything mixed up nice. So we do have to push a little bit to get that ragout really up in there and mixed up good. We're going to add more, but we're just going to slowly incorporate it. So we're just going to keep mixing. I'm telling you, if I can figure out how to invent smell-o-vision, I would make doing this. I wouldn't need to do this Jersey Joe thing. I'm telling you, I'd be a millionaire because the smell coming off of here, it smells like Grandma's kitchen back in the 70s when the world was happy. Nobody was fighting with each other and just everybody was happy back here. We did have that whole Vietnam thing, but I'm talking after that. So once Vietnam was over and everybody was happy in their kitchen. Nowadays, everybody's just so stressed out, running. Everybody's mad. This one's mad at that one. That one's mad at this one. You got Biden falling all over the place trying to give a speech, can't speak. I don't know. Not gonna get political though. Let's get some more of this cheese in here and just keep mixing. That's what we're gonna do. Mix. Looks nice. Looks real nice. So today's Valentine's Day. We're recording today on Valentine's Day. So actually, it's going to be Miss Jersey Joe, Christine, and myself spending Valentine's Day with Phil and Kay. We're going to have a Bible study tonight, and we're going to eat this wonderful meal. Or, since I'm Italian, I should say magnifique. So if it's a little watery, you notice from the spinach maybe, and you drip down. See, this here is perfect. I'm looking at this. I'm not seeing any water in there. That's nice and tight. It's moldable, which is what I want. So it looks real good. So we're going to say that our filling is ready to go. So we're ready for the next step. So we got our main ingredients now are ready to go here. We got our flank steak or skirt steak that's been seared off. We have our prosciutto, and we have our homemade filling. Our spinach and ricotta and different cheeses that we have mixed together here. It's all Italian cheeses, provolone, mozzarella, things like that, all mixed together. There was some Romano cheese in there, so it ought to be very good when it's in contrast to the red gravy. So when you look at a flank steak or a skirt steak, the way it's cut is you kind of have like what I call ribs on one side and kind of smooth on the other side. So what you want to do is when we do these, we build these, we're going to roll these like this, and we're going to use our toothpicks over there, and we're going to go ahead and secure it with the toothpicks, and then we're going to take it, we're going to put it over here. So what you want to do is you want to identify where your ribs are versus where your smoothness is, and make sure your smoothness is up, because that's where you want to spread. So I've already set everything. That's good to go. What we'll do is we'll start putting it on. I want to get it better. I want to go with something smaller. And by the way, this mixture here makes a great ravioli filling. Or you could actually substitute like a manigot noodle. So you could do like manigotti. So you can take this and use the same type of filling. So it really is a universal filling, but it's very, very good. So we'll go ahead now and get this ready. I think this looks good. It's firmed up a bit for us, which is what we want. First thing we're going to do is take our prosciutto and get our prosciutto on the bottom top of the meat here. Bottom top of the meat, if that makes sense, but it is. It's going to be the bottom of the filling, and it's the top portion of the steak. So it's the bottom of the top. So I want to taste the prosciutto, so I want to make sure I get it in there. I hate these little filler things they use in here. I wish they would just cut the ham, because this is ham actually. I wish they would just cut the ham a little thicker, so we wouldn't have to go with that. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get this prosciutto all on the tops here, or bottoms, the bottom tops of our skirt steak as we get moving here. So we'll do this real quick and then we'll start to put our stuff in one, or our filling one. So I'm just going to continue going through here and getting this prosciutto ham on top here of my skirt steak to get ready. Now you're going to have, a lot of different size pieces of meat here, which is totally fine. You just learn to improvise. The key here is going to be keeping them together while they bake. So what I do is I find an undersized pan almost, or baking vessel, and I put them tight together so they stay together just by being part of the family, close together. So we'll go ahead and just keep doing our thing here. Get that ham on there. By the way, now I gotta say, Italians do know how to eat. This ham is dry aged and it is amazing. Prosciutto is just, it's unbelievable. It's got a nice fat content and they tend to slice it thin, which is, I guess it's good if you can get it apart easily, but it's a pain in the neck when you can't get it apart. But it's good on crackers, good on cheeses. One of the things I tend to do with this, so if I have leftover prosciutto after this, what I'll do is I will take and get some asparagus, and I will soak the asparagus in some water for a little bit, get it nice and soft, and then what I'm going to do is go ahead and wrap it in prosciutto and then bacon, and then put it on the smoker. Oh, you want to know that good. And that actually, come to think of it, would probably go really well with this dish. So, that's that. This is a time-consuming dish. It takes patience, so you definitely want to be patient and set some time aside to make it, because you're going to spend yourself at least an hour and a half in prep time. But in the end, it is all worth it, I guarantee it. It will blow their minds. So as you can see, I just simply am just setting it on there. Nothing major here, folks. Not rocket science. All right, so now I can tell that this is ready to go. So listen, try to spread it on here. Don't be afraid to get it on your hands. It's not going to kill you. And as long as your hands are clean, which I hope they are if you're going to be cooking, it's not a big deal. But you're going to lose some of this during the cooking. It's going to seep out. So you want to make sure that you got enough in here. You don't want to go too much because then you can't roll it. So it's kind of like that happy medium that you got to look for when you do it. So get your toothpicks ready before you roll. I'm just gonna put some out on the counter here. I usually do 2 or 3. So I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna fold it, and yes, it's gonna squeeze out, and that's fine, because we're gonna use that right on the next one. Take our toothpick in one end, out the other. See that? So it's almost like a little taco when you're looking at the top of it. Set it in there just like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to keep going, getting them tight in there. So now I got this little overflow from the first one, and we'll just put it on to the second one. Now, you'll probably have extra filling when you're done, and that's fine, because like I said, you can use that for managad, you can use it for ravioli. I'm actually making a ravioli tonight. We're just going to have a regular sausage filled ravioli with the red gravy to go along with this. So it ought to be a pretty good meal tonight. But yeah, you can kind of use your leftovers for anything. And if you don't have anything right off the bat that you can think of to make with it, you can just put it into a Ziploc bag, get as much air out, get as much air out as you can, and just freeze it. Drop it in the freezer, right on it what it is. Because if you're anything like me, my freezer's a mess. I have no idea what half the things are because they're just like a bunch of bags that are frozen over, freezer burnt, and I don't know what's what. So do yourself a favor and write on it what it is. Remember, you got to take the toothpicks out before you serve it. Or remind the people that are eating it that there are 2 toothpicks in each one. So you want to make sure that they get those toothpicks out, because that could be a little painful if you bite into a toothpick. That's why I try to put the toothpicks up high. Now, you can make, when you look at this dish, you could use thinner flank steak and, almost like kind of cheesesteak type steaks. You get it cut real thin. Like this is around 1/4 inch, but obviously you could go smaller than that, and you might get more rolls out of it. When I say rolls, rolling it like this, you may get more out of it. But I found that we're going to cook this at 350 for about 45 minutes to an hour, right? And you want to make sure that your steak doesn't dry out. Even though you got it soaking in gravy, your steak will dry out. That's another reason why we use flank and skirt steak, because they're a little fattier steaks, and that's what we want. We want that fattiness in the steak so it doesn't dry out over cooking. So if you use a thin steak, you might find that you get dry, and then you're going to need a lot of red gravy to sop up some of that dryness. So try and keep that in mind when you're choosing the right steak. You might have to ask the butcher to make it for you specifically. Just tell them you're going to make Braciole. If they're Italian, they'll know. If they're not Italian, I would go somewhere else. Find a new butcher. You can push them tight together. It ain't going to hurt them. Don't be afraid. Try and fold it up in there. Give it a little push, a little stuff. Get it all in there. It'll cook in there. That's why we put them together tight. We put them together tight, they're not going to have any room to explode. So then when we take them out, we're just going to grab in there with some tongs and get up in there and just pull it right out. And that way it all stays together. I remember watching my grandma make this dish time after time. She'd start at like 7 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. She'd start the red gravy, and she'd make a big old pot of red gravy because Sunday is a day of worship, right? And you give thanks to the Almighty. You reflect back on the death, burial, and the resurrection, and you thank Jesus for what He's done for us and continues to do for us, the way He provides for us. And food just really ties in with the gospel so nicely because, you know, every time you really have a serious discussion about the gospel, you can center it around food, and food draws people. So, the story is, you know, if you want them, you make it and you make it good food wise, and they will come. And then you got them there. And then once you got them there, then you share the gospel with them. And that's what it's all about. So, I mean, growing up as a kid, everyone knows the story. I was a Catholic. I was not a Christian, and I didn't understand the death, burial, and resurrection. But I always knew there was a God, right? But what I didn't know is the actual gospel from Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And when I read through that, I really had an eye opening. And then, working with Phil, I've learned so much more in detail and depth about it. So now it all ties into what I did as a child, and now what I do as an adult and father myself with children and hopefully soon grandchildren. I want to center Sundays around food and the gospel. And, if you make good food, they're going to come and they're going to listen. And there's no better way to go and just share what you know with people. Like I said, my grandmother, she would get up 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning on Sundays and start that gravy. She'd start the gravy. She would make the sausage the night before, and of course, this was homemade sausage. This wasn't store bought Italian sausage. She had the grinder, and if the grinder wasn't enough for what she needed to do, she had a butcher grind it up for her. She added the sage and all the spices and herbs to make homemade Italian sausage. She'd stuff the casing. I mean, she had that old crank stuffer I remember looking at. It was just amazing. So she would do that and let that red gravy meld together while we were at church. So we would all have to go to church. It's a big family. And then we'd come home. We'd get home about 1 o'clock in the afternoon after church. We'd say a prayer and we'd start eating lunch. And then we'd eat our lunch and then go watch TV. And the women stayed in the kitchen. But I always wanted to learn what was going on in the kitchen. So I wouldn't watch football during football season or baseball when it was on. I would go into the kitchen and help and learn. And now this is what I've got from it. So it got passed on to me. So then when I ran up on Phil, I started cooking for Phil and coming over his house on Wednesdays, and we would eat and have a Bible study. And he's taught me a tremendous amount of things that I just didn't know. So, it's kind of like that circle. And that's what, the gospel is all about. When you start talking about the death, burial, and resurrection, remembering what Jesus did for us, right? It's an amazing thing. But more than just reading it and absorbing it and going to church and knowing it, there's so much more what your job is there. And your job is to go ahead and push it forward, you know, pay it forward and tell that next person that doesn't understand the gospel, never heard the gospel, tell them about it, right? Because that's how we continue to grow the gospel and grow the kingdom. And just we need, as a country, as mankind, we need to have Jesus in our life, because if we don't, we have nothing. Jesus saved us. He continues to save us, look after us, and direct us. And that's why I do this, because while, yeah, we joke around, we have some fun, we talk about fun stuff. I go on some other shows, we joke around, have a good old time. But for me, I center it around Jesus and food, because Jesus made all this possible, and food, without it, we die. So I believe in the resurrection. I'm just not ready for it now. So I'm going to continue to eat and have a good old time preaching the Lord. And that's what I'm going to do. So some of you are going to like it. Some of you would rather have me shut up and just show you how to cook and move on. But I'm going to kind of do both. So we're going to have a happy happy medium here and just go as we go. So what happens next? I'm going to take a break. I'm going to clean up my hands. I'm going to put some of the leftovers away, and then I'm going to show you how we top this, because there is a special way to get that gravy in there, and then we'll top it, and then we'll put it in the oven for 350 degrees. We're going to put it in the oven for 45 to 50 minutes, uncovered, in the middle of the oven. If you have a convection oven, turn that off. You just want regular slow baking, nothing crazy. This is old school cooking, because the gravy is actually going to almost slowly boil and seep into the meat. So we want that to happen. So the cooking process is very important to follow that. So 350, 45 to 50 minutes. You'll know it's done when the top is completely brown and you see bubbling coming off the sides. That's why you want to use a clear baking vessel. But that's it. So we'll see you in a bit. All right, so we got the red gravy ready to go now. And now we're going to start putting it in here. And what we want to do is you want to basically first go along the outside edges. Do not put it directly on top of the meat at this point. Try and focus on getting it in between all of the gaps. We're just going to go along, try to get it in between the gaps. But remember, we want to bathe the meat in the gravy. It's all right to go overboard. So now what we'll do is we're gonna do a little bit of vibration here. Try and get it to go down in those grooves best we can. And you're not gonna get it perfect, and that's fine. But what you do want to do is get it up off the sides. Don't let any gravy get up on them sides, because we got to get some cheese up in there yet. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll clean this off a little bit. Clean the edge. All right. Now, I think I'm going to get a little bit more now. Now that I know that I have enough gravy all the way around, I'm going to go ahead and cover this a little bit, because I want some gravy on there. Now, when you bake this, I recommend putting it under a baking sheet, because it will expand a little bit before it drops down. It's interesting the way that it cooks. It'll expand up a little bit, and then as that steak cooks down and breaks down and the juices come out, it'll drop down, but juices will come up on the sides, and it may overflow on you. So if you get yourself a little pan, put underneath of it, you'll be good to go. So lastly, what we're going to do is top it with some regular mozzarella. I like to use the thick mozzarella. I don't like that fancy thin stuff. Don't go crazy on the edges with mozzarella. Put it right in the middle. Rolling. I'll cut it. So then we'll just give it a little bit of movement around here. See, we got plenty of cheese, so we don't have to go. The mozzarella is really just a topper to keep everything from, burning, but it gives you a nice. The mozzarella goes on to give you a nice indicator of when it's done. So when that mozzarella gets brown, and bubble, it stretches out, and that's how you know that you're getting close to done. Outside of that, what you can do, a little bit of pepper on there, and that's just for looks. If you wanted, you could put some spinach on top, a couple places, whatever, make it fancy. But that's it, folks. Again, We're going to drop it in a 350-degree preheated oven. We're going to cook it for 45 to say 55 minutes, somewhere in that time frame. It all depends on the age of the oven. We're going to monitor it after about a half hour or so, give it a spin. You're going to be able to see through the sides. You're going to see bubbling and boiling here, and that's what you want to see because that's steaming that meat with all the sauce. And that's pretty much it. You can serve it with a side of red gravy with some type of noodle, maybe a linguine noodle, or like tonight what I'm going to serve it is, I got some nice sausage stuffed ravioli that I'm going to serve it with. And that ought to be that. Remember, say a prayer every meal. Keep the faith. We'll see you soon. Thank you for watching. Remember to like and subscribe on YouTube, as well as follow us on Facebook at Jersey Joe Kinjemi.